Warning, the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in the show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCam, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ass. We're on episode 36. It's school vacation. It's legislative vacation. Not exactly vacation for our local election, but we'll get into that in a sec. But anyway, today we are with two guests, two state senators, Senators Kevin Avard and Senator Tim Lang. So take a minute to introduce yourself. Let's start with you, Senator.
I'm Senator Kevin Avard, District 12, Nashua, New Hampshire. And I happen to, this is my fourth term. How did you get two senators?
I asked.
Good job. District 12, which is 3 wards of Nashua, Hollis, Brookline, Mason, Rindge, New Ipswich, and Greenville. And again, this is my fourth term. I also served in the House and served as a city councilor, zoning board, planning board, the whole 9 yards. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm Senator Tim Lang. I'm from Senate District 2. It's the Lakes region area, basically. I'm in my first term in the Senate, having served 3 terms in the House. My last term in the House, I was the chairman of the Fish and Game Committee. Coming over to the Senate, I also served 3 terms on Ways and Means, which is taxes, revenues, and fees over in the House. In the Senate, I am the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, again, the taxes, fees, and funds, as well as I serve on the Education Committee.
Nice. Thank you both for coming on. Before we get into some of the big bills that we'll be seeing, crossover is about to happen if it hasn't already. First, we'll touch on Derry, as always, because right now Derry schools are, as you all know, it's interesting. Our school board will be having their candidate forum this Thursday, along with the town candidates, but everyone's watching the school board because that election is a complete mess. I've explained, we have 2 candidates running. Both of the candidates are completely against what the school board is doing with the whole redistricting, closing of schools, building a new one for $72 million, thus raising taxes, etc. Yeah, both of the candidates are against it. But 2 days after the filing period ended, the school board found a write-in candidate. They convinced someone to do a write-in, and this person is a substitute teacher who will be quitting their job if they are elected. But this person has access to all the PTAs. They know all the administrators and the teachers and teachers' unions, and plus they have 6 school board endorsements out of 7. So it's going to be interesting. I think we need to campaign more on our end. I know, Senator Lang, you had some data you would like to share.
Well, no. So again, one of the, like Kevin, most of us all started local. So
Yeah.
I served on my school budget committee. I served on my school board for 2 terms, 6 years on the school board. School board's not an easy job.
It is,
and
it is
it's
not.
tough when things are changing. It's, in Derry, you have a very changing demographic. I was looking back at your school records because, again, I was the author of the education funding formula this year, and looking at that, I look back at what it meant to Derry. And in Derry, in 2012, you had over 5,500 students in the district. You now have 4,400. You've lost over 1,000 students.
It's amazing.
And in that same window of time, your funding went from $27 million when you had 5,500 kids to $31 million. So we've increased funding for the city of Derry, but you've lost students. And trying to manage that as we have student populations decreasing is a really tough job for a school board. And whoever you get in there needs to be paying attention to the pennies because it's going to make a difference. As we know that the Commissioner of Education has said over the next 10 years, in its anticipation, we're going to lose 1% of student population a year. So we're going to see another 10% decline, which is another 400 to 500 students in Derry. And you have to be planning now for that. Right? You can't keep expecting the revenue is going to always be there when you're losing students and we're doing a per student formula.
Yeah, it's very interesting also that, I've gone through many of conferences in the past, and we're trying to get a bead on what's driving up the cost. Mm-hmm. Is it the buildings? Is it the teacher's salary? Is it their health care, blah, blah, blah. But one of the main themes across the country is the administrators. You just keep adding more and more administrators to the mix, and that's driving up the cost. And everybody's saying, well, why is it getting so expensive when the kids are, the numbers are declining? Well, you have to look at that, and it's interesting that you have a write-in, and the unions are behind that, and so that makes it very difficult for people to step up to the plate when you have that type of a machine behind one candidate. And I'd like to know really what they stand for. I mean, we're talking about some issues like with biological sex in schools, obscene material in schools. Yeah. Where do they stand on that? How about this write-in? Where does she stand on that, or he?
That question hasn't been asked yet. I'll ask it at the candidate forum this Thursday. Well, tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
It's very important because some of our kids are being subjected to some really, really foul material. And I think it was, who was it on the House side that tried to read some of the material?
Glenn Cordelli.
Representative Cordelli from up in the Wolfboro area.
And the Democrats were starting to walk out because, well, it was going to be obscene. Well, wait a second. If it's not good enough for the state representatives and people that are making laws to hear in a public forum, why are children being subjected to this?
Yeah.
And I think it's time that people need to stand up. This is the time. You need to stand up. And it's not a sexy job, being on the school board, but it is one of the more important jobs. And I think the Democrats have found that out because you control a huge engine, the education, the minds of the youth. And that's something that that really needs to be looked at.
So again, I can just go back to funding, financial, right? Education policy is pretty much driven, curriculum's driven at the state level, that kind of thing. But your local school board's all about implementation and dollars and cents, right? So it's about how it works, the pragmatic piece of education, right? Making it work. Kevin has hit the nail on the head with the conversation that if you look at growth lines, the growth of the administrators at a percentage compared to the growth of teachers, and especially if you look at salaries, right? You have some administrators in the state making $150,000, $200,000 a year, and teachers in those same districts are starting salaries of $35,000 to $50,000, right? And so it's about where you put your focus and where is the focus? Is the focus on teachers and getting them good starting salaries, or is the focus in administration and making sure they keep their big salaries?
Yeah, you mentioned you were the author of the fund this year. Our school board has criticized it several times. They're saying we're not adequately funded enough. They knock the legislature at least once a meeting. And we have something in Derry, which I don't think a lot of towns or cities have. It's called the Legislative Committee. It's 3 of our representatives, our senator, 3 school board members, and 3 town councilors. And they meet quarterly every year and just discuss legislation that impacts our town. I think all towns should have it. I don't understand why more don't. Why more towns haven't implemented it. We kind of restarted it once Jim McEachran got elected back to our town council. He was chair of that in the 90s, and when he came back last year, he started it again. But the legislature is doing the right thing, I think. They have been. And school boards are just so ambitious lately, especially Derry, because like I said, a $72 million school in a town like Derry, and they want to close 2 schools to make that happen. In fact, one of them is going to be closing at the end of this school year. They want the second one to close 2026, 2027, around then. And they want to put this all on the taxpayers.
Yeah, ask the people on the fixed income. How's that affecting you?
That idea was raised at the deliberative session. One of our town councilors, Brian Chirichello, I'm sure you might have heard of him, he requested $1.1 million be cut from our budget. Remember, $72 million from the school, $1.1 million cut. The chair of the school board said, that is not in the spirit of what the deliberative session is about. Which I don't, yeah, you're laughing because you're a former school board member. He should not have said that, and we called him out on it. But it's just a complete mess. I think David Clapp might be the chair of the school board next term, by the way. That's not going to be good.
This is Regina's district, right?
Regina, yeah.
Yes.
So Derry, in 2012, when you had 5,500 students, the cost per pupil was around $13,000.
Yeah.
Again, you've reduced students by over 1,000 in that same since then, and your new cost is around 19,000 and change, 19.3 thousand per student. Right. So again, managing that cost is extremely hard to do, and it's like if you're looking at fiscal conservatism, someone who is looking at those budgets and looking at what your classroom sizes are, right? Again, how many classrooms do you have? How many classes are running with 6 kids in it, right? And consolidating those classrooms to get, looking at being innovative and looking at outsourcing specialty classes. We just passed in the Senate a 30-hour bill that will allow, that's going over to the House, that would allow school districts to hire part-time teachers, right? That could teach specialty classes. Like, imagine hiring a CPA to teach a business accounting class, right? Or a computer engineer to teach a computer science class, right? Where they don't need a full-time teacher, but they need the ability to have those kind of specialty or unique classes for students. And so with any luck, that kind of thing, again, we did it with an effort of making it more affordable. Art class is another great example, right? There's schools that don't need a full-time art teacher, right? But they want to offer art 1 day a week or 1 class a day. And so they could hire a local art professional to come in and teach that 1 class on a contract per day, rather than hiring a full-time teacher with fully, with full benefits.
It's just targeted teaching, basically.
Yeah.
So what else is happening in town?
Well, the school end is the big thing. By the way, I am endorsing Erica Leon for school district moderator. She's running a write-in campaign for moderator because no one signed up.
Interesting.
So I'm endorsing her for that.
She's on the Alzheimer's subcommittee.
She's
vice chair of that.
Yeah. And as you all know, I am endorsing Wilbert Danger and Katie DeLay for school board. And I'd also like to make my town council endorsement official, Jack Webb and Erin Spencer for at-large and District 1, respectively. Both great people. I'm excited. So we'll move on to the legislative end. Like I said, crossover is upon us. It's going to be some interesting debates. Start anywhere. What are some bills that you're passionate about, something you're sponsoring?
Well, I have one on the PBMs, which is the pharmacy benefit management, and I think we're going to pass that in the Senate. And basically, there's a thing called pharmacy benefit managers, and they're kind of like a middleman between the insurance companies and the pharmacies. And in theory, they were supposed to lower the cost of the overall drugs, and it doesn't seem to be working that way. So I put in a bill saying that there needs to be a little bit more transparency in that, and there's a rebate of 50%. So somebody who's on a fixed income. I have one client, not one client, one constituent in Hollis. He's in a wheelchair, and he's on meds, and his meds are $1,200 a month. His property taxes went up, his food's gone up, his gas has gone up, everything's gone up. And so we're just trying to show them some kind of relief, give them some kind of relief. $1,200 a month for a prescription just to stay alive. So this helps him get a little bit of rebate back, 50% back, and I'm pretty passionate about that. There's like 800 bills that we're going through, so it's hard to zero in on one. We're trying to lower the cost of energy and electricity and whatnot.
You're the chair of energy, right?
Yeah, I'm the chair of energy, vice chair of HHS. So that's two big hitters in the Senate. There's a lot of issues that come before us, especially hunting squirrels. Right? I mean, after all.
Thanks, Kevin.
Somebody put in a bill about squirrel hunting. Whatever. It's fine. Do you know anybody who did that? So, that's one big bill, though. I think that will help a lot of people on fixed income. I really worry about
the PBM bill, not the squirrel
PBM,
bill.
not the PBM, not the squirrel bill. Because, when you're on a fixed income, you have no other way of making money.
Yeah.
And so when you see the rise in cost of things, what do? You sacrifice food for the medicine? So that's an interesting. I think we're going to pass it 24-0. We'll see what the House does with it. But
I think that's a nationwide topic as well.
It really is. Yeah.
Given the national political crisis with our president and our Congress, everything's going up. Everything.
Border security, we definitely support the governor in his attempts to with our northern border, and sending money down to our southern border. We have we're hearing numbers from 8 to 15 million people have crossed our borders. We don't know where they're at. ICE has about 6.5 million people that they know are here, but they can't arrest. that have entered here illegally. Now, crime is going up. People, you're seeing in the news, people are being harmed by illegals. And I know Congress is trying to pass something for the illegal aliens, and that's what I'm going to call them. They're illegal aliens.
Yeah.
And that is that is what the bill addresses in Congress right now. And they're here illegally. They're using all our resources. And we don't know who's here, whether they're terrorists or not. And I guess, was it the Sheriff's Department met in D.C., the National Sheriff's Department, recently. And they were warned that there are more red flags now than there were before 9/11. So the peanut butter is going to hit the fan at some point, and we just don't know when. And so we want people to be aware, and hats off to the governor for our northern border. I've talked with former military and Homeland Security who have said, yes, there are a lot of people coming from our northern border. It's wide open.
Yeah.
We have a very little resources to monitor it because of the mountain range. It cuts off surveillances. They don't have any overhead. And so one of the things they're very concerned about are the weapons that are crossing our northern border. And I talked with them this spring. You know how when the blues, they all come up during the springtime. And two of the border securities this May, or last May, I should say, said that's one of the things that they're very concerned about. The drugs, but it's the weapons.
Yeah.
This is New Hampshire, you know? So I don't want to hold all the time. What do you got?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
So this year, probably one of the key bills I'm working on, again, going back to education, is an education building funding program, revamping our current funding program. If you don't know how the current fund works, we allocate a certain amount of money, and then schools apply for it. And so last year, I think we got 22 different applications, which means that
Derry was one of them.
They engaged architects, they engaged designers, community resources to put an architectural plan in to say, hey, this is what we want to do. Of the 22, 3 of them got funded. So, man, everybody else just, pissed away money, education money on architectural plans that went nowhere, because unless they chose to pick up that bond completely on themselves, there was no state money available. It makes it extremely hard for schools to plan. And so what this bill does is it leaves the existing plan in, because I need to create a new plan, but we can't just swap them cleanly without a lot of money. And so what we do is we establish a new per student funding formula that will earmark money for every community. And it'll grow each year. We earmark the money and it'll grow. And then as we grow that program, we slowly wind down the other programs, so it does away. So in the end, after 10 years, you have a funding formula that schools can look at and say, based on this funding formula, in 10 years, we're going to have this much money in our savings account. And what are the projects that we need to do that has that? So it can be predictable and sustainable for school districts going forward. And says, oh, we have a renovation we need to do in the next 10 years. Where's that money going to come from? They can look at this. And it's the school district's money. And so they still have to put a plan together and send it to the state, the Department of Education, who will look at it and say, that meets the criteria for the use of this money. Now go get your voters' approval. And it'll go back to the voters. The voters in the local town or school district will vote yes or no to spend that savings account money. They vote yes, the state will transfer the money to the local town for that expenditure and that use. So, but it creates a long-term predictable path, and it's not just, I'm going to put the application and then hope my school is the worst school on the list so I get funded first. You know, because that just encourages people to let the money not take care of their schools, let them go into disrepair. Because why? Because if it's bad enough, the state will step in.
We have a bill that's mirroring each other. What was it, the biological sex?
Biological sex bill this year. Yeah.
It's a very big concern. A lot of parents are really concerned about their kids competing with kids of the opposite sex, and we put in a bill. Basically, it allows for that to be segregated, so that somebody who's trans doesn't basically compete against another, like a male versus a female with basically stronger, hormones, if you will. So we want to protect the girls. We also want to protect the locker rooms, and the bill also allows for co-ed as well, but the locker rooms are off limits. Parents that their kids they're striving to in excellence in their sports, and they want the college scholarships and whatnot. all of a sudden the young ladies are competing against the male, who has higher testosterone and
So to Kevin's point,
advantages.
it's about competitiveness,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
being fairly competitive, right? Be able to compete in a fair, level playing field. Science is really simple, right? The science has said that men have thicker bone density, heavier bone density. Men have thicker muscle mass. We have greater lung capacity than the average woman, which puts, if you put a biological male on a sports team with a biological female, especially in endurance and especially in physical activity, they're going to have a physiological advantage. And to me, it's not about gender, right? So neither one of our bills does the word gender appear anywhere. This is strictly about biological sex and the physiological advantages of a male over a female. And to make it playing field. Again, you can go back to just some recent New England examples down in Connecticut, Kit High School, I think is the name of it. The coach at halftime, girls basketball game, pulled the team and forfeited the game because 3 of his girls in the first half got hurt by a male player that was playing on the female team.
Wasn't it Serena Williams who said something about she wouldn't win against the 200th ranked 200th in the male sports. It's a different game. They hit faster, harder.
We had in Swampscott, Massachusetts, they had the lacrosse player, not the lacrosse, the field hockey player who lost her teeth, right? She got knocked out, right? So again, playing against a male player.
And there's been a few in New Hampshire as well this year. There was the basketball player, pole vaulter, I think.
No, the high jumper from
high
Kearsarge.
jumper, yes.
Yep. So again, right, the whole point of Title IX was originally about sexes, right? Is to make it so that they recognize that biological females cannot compete with biological men in the same sport. Basketball, right? Can you imagine Shaq in the WNBA, right? And what that would look like, right? And so so they realized that their Title IX was all about it. I found out that President Nixon signed Title IX. I didn't know that in the 70s. And they hailed it as one of the best things for women ever back in 1972, I think it was, when it was signed.
Is that when Billie Jean King?
Yeah, she came out in favor of it, right? Yeah. She was hugely talking about how Title IX was going to make a huge difference for women in competitive sports. And so, again, we've gotten away from that idea, right, about keeping it so that there's a level competitive playing field for people in sports, and making it so women have advantages. Like, so when you talk about the gentleman you were talking about from Kearsarge, and the girl from Kearsarge, they only allow a certain number of players to go to state championship. Right. And so if he was on the team, that meant there was a biological girl that was off the team, right? And him using his physiological advantages won a state title over that as a sophomore.
Yeah.
And so, again, the bill that Kevin and I, we each have a bill. We're going to merge them into a good working bill because both of them have advantages. But again, it's about leveling the playing fields for biological females to make sure they can be competitive. They want to go for that same D1 scholarship,
right,
in high school, right, to get to be competitive, and to compete against a biological male who has a physiological advantage is just not fair.
And it's not like we're against trans or we just want it to be fair.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But of course, you get hailed as though you're anti-trans. We're not anti anything. It's America.
I remember in middle school, it was 8th grade at West Runningbrook. That was the year Ron DeSantis signed the, and I'm doing this in quotations, "Don't Say Gay" bill. I'm sure you both remember that. The diversity club at West Runningbrook, and yes, that is a thing in our school's diversity club, did a walkout in protest of that bill. And it was basically everyone just went into the CAF, and it backfired on them because a lot of people just went to goof off. I remember hearing about some students that went up to the microphone they set up for anyone who wanted to make a speech of some kind. I wasn't there, by the way, just so you know, and just secondhand accounts. And someone went up there and just chanted, "We are gay. We are gay." And stuff like this is just, it's taking over schools. And I remember last year, it wasn't the first instance of it, but I think it was the one that got everyone's attention. It was Lia Thomas in Penn State, the swimmer, the record holder. And that was where I think this issue got mainstreamed. And I think, I agree with your bill, both of your bills. We need this in New Hampshire because I feel like every week I read a new instance of it.
Yeah.
Well, again, neither Kevin nor I Bill talk about gender. This isn't about gender. This is about sexual orientation. This is strictly making A, it safe, and B, it fair.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And that's what the bill's about, right? Is making it safe for our girls to play, making it fair for our girls to play. And it needs it, dramatically. So.
And I feel it gets blown out of proportion on what it actually is trying to do.
It's a narrative.
Yeah.
If you don't follow the narrative, then that's one of the things that I'm just talking to a lot of people about. If you go against the mainstream thought, right? If what is the narrative of the day, you're attacked, and people are attacked to the point where they just want to be quiet. But it's like there's a new king in town, and the new king says, in the name of equity, in the name of compassion, in the name of fairness and justice, if you don't agree with me, not me, but the king narrative, well, you're out of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And you're going to be trampled on by social media. And that's what's coming up. And it undermines our constitutional rights and free speech. And people have to fight against that and stand up, be tall, and speak out.
Well, messaging's top right. So we just had recently 2 homicides occur here in the United States. One happened with that student who got in a fight in the bathroom, was a non-binary student, got in a fight in the bathroom, and the first rush to judgment was she was being bullied, or they were being bullied, and that's what caused it. And then you had the other homicide down in Georgia, I think it was, which was from an illegal immigrant. Right? They didn't talk about the one in Georgia until we brought it up, right? That illegal immigrant who was here from Venezuela killed a college student, outright murder. And then you find out that in the one, I forgot what state the non-binary student was in, but in that one you find out that the non-binary student's one that started the fight. Went in, a couple girls in the bathroom were talking crap, and the non-binary student threw water in the face of one of the students, which turned into a scuffle. But it was never a discussion about being non-binary or anything else. It was just a typical girls' fight. But the national media, the story of the day was bullying.
The national media is the most dangerous social hierarchy complex in America.
I think universities are right on par.
Yep, that's right up there too. So we are just about out of time. So before we end, if there's any closing statements you'd like to make, go right ahead.
Proud of you. You got 2 senators here.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you for serving on LIAC.
Yeah.
I know you do that. It's a great service and a great program here in the State House to bring young kids into the State House. And thank you for serving on it. I know it's time out of your day and out of your school time. So thanks for serving, and thanks for having us.
Thank you for supporting LIAC. You've shown up at some of our meetings. Senator Avard, you're invited as well. Show up anytime.
Love to.
Yeah. The election is 2 weeks from yesterday. So 13 days until the Derry election. It's going to be very pivotal. Is it going to save Derry schools, or is it going to cost us a lot of money in taxes? We'll see. Vote no on the Warren articles. Except number 7, vote yes on that. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.